On this episode of Sports Opinions Podcast, I once again reach back into my history and talk to another one of my absolute mentors, um, teacher and coach of 19 years over at Manchester Township High School, Tom Scheffler. If I can point to one guy that got me going into the athletics direction, it was Chef, one of the most influential guys in terms of coaching in sports in my life. We talk about his coaching philosophy and how it's evolved in his 19 years of coaching over at Manchester. We talk about the importance of the psychology of the athlete and what he's found um, really makes an athlete move and tick in terms of athletics. And then we touch on collegiate sports, specifically talking about the sadness of not seeing the nationals in collegiate wrestling and also in March Madness. And then what Rutgers has been able to do as a wrestling program in his alma mater, West Virginia. So without any further ado, enjoy the show. What's up, sports fans, and welcome to the Sports Opinions Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Alex Cuesta. And with me today is, I say it a lot, when I have people that have influenced my life, mentors, people that have shaped me, maybe what I've become, but honestly, this is the guy that I can point to that was probably my first real coach. And if anyone knows me, they know I talk about sports all the time. This guy, I had, this is not even a joke. I had my most success under this guy when he was my coach. He is a teacher and coach of 19 years over at Manchester Township High School, my alma mater, Tom Scheffler. Chef, what's going on, buddy?
How you doing, Alex? I really appreciate that. It was kids like you that really made me want to stay with coaching. I really enjoyed it because of kids like you.
That's a surprising thing. I mean,
No.
overall, it was, it really was. I had my most success as a runner, which is interesting going through college and everything. I was injured a lot, but I have the best memories of freshman year of high school. That was like my peak as a runner, which is pretty insane. And a lot of it had to do with the one season you really coached me in outdoor, just giving me all the confidence in the world to do what I wanted to do.
Well, I appreciate that. And that's part of it, is just having that confidence.
Yeah, we're going to touch on a lot of that stuff because one of the things about you and, something that you weren't shy about, even as a coach, especially with running, you have a wrestling background. You are a wrestling guy. You went to college for wrestling. You kind of jumped into the XC track thing, distance, kind of just they needed a coach. And one thing about you is you were always a student. If you needed to learn something, you busted your ass and you learned it. And that's something you did with distance. But it was always funny with you. You're like, guys, you probably know more about distance than me sometimes, but in terms of motivating, I'm going to motivate the crap out of you guys.
Yeah. It's funny because when I first started at Manchester, they did need a cross-country coach. Mm-hmm. And I was a football player. I was looking to be on and start coaching football like I did at my old high school. But when I came in, they needed a cross-country guy. I ran cross-country in middle school only because I was too big to play football.
Yes. And when you got there, it was still Coach Covert. That was still he was the coach there, right?
Yes. And they had their filled positions, and Coach Covert was an amazing guy.
Oh, yeah.
I could say that when I first started coaching at Manchester, there were some coaching greats right there. Him, Coach Musoff. I was under the tutelage of Coach McKinnon for a while. He was my mentor as a teacher. And I've just given up, but I was coaching with him for about 9 years with girls tennis. See, I've coached almost everything there.
Yeah, you've been a jack of all trades. I had my uncle John Portaways on a little while ago, and it seems like you guys have taken similar paths in terms of, you coached your passions. You never got to coach football, but in general, you head coached wrestling and all that.
Yes.
You've coached your passions, and now it's kind of just the fun time. You guys are my uncles in coast mode. You're kind of not in coast as coaching, but in terms of you kind of choose what you want to coach now. You're not like so driven to kind of coach something because you did it already. You're having fun now, it seems like.
You know what? I've always had fun, no matter what I coached, because it's not about the actual, and that's the reason why I got into coaching. It wasn't the actual sport, although wrestling is my passion. It will always be my passion. It's something, and you understand that when you had to go back to football.
Oh yeah.
But wrestling was the number one thing, but it took a lot of time away from my family, and my family is my number one thing in my life. But whatever I coached, it was the kids. And I could say at Manchester, I would say that they are the most naturally talented individuals I've ever come in contact with. So, it makes coaching very easy for me to find the talent. It's trying to mold that talent into what you really need. That's the difficult part.
Yeah, that's definitely always the challenge. And, I did my little bit of coaching in terms of coming back and helping out and also coaching up here at Marist. So I definitely have a concept of that. Now we're going to delve into you as a coach completely, your philosophy, how you think, the way you dive into your sports. What was your philosophy when you first came in as a young, energetic, 20-something-year-old into Manchester, fresh off of, helping out coaching football, coming in now as XC coach, wanting to help out at wrestling? What was your philosophy then? And now how has it molded throughout the 19 years, which is bizarre to me that you've been doing it for 19 years. That makes me feel old because you were like the young, cool coach when I was there that just kind of yelled at us. And it was kind of like, oh, he's not that much older than us and he's yelling at us. That's kind of all
right. It is funny how it's changed so much over the 19 years. And the 19 years just goes by so quick, especially when you're coaching 3 sports. You'd never have time for anything. But each sport was different because you had a different type of athlete. Mm-hmm. With cross country, it was more of I tried to learn as much as possible. I wanted to, because I was new to it, as it wasn't my passion, but it was different. You had a different type of athlete. It wasn't a huge group of kids. We had 10 kids on the team at the most.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit different. So you kind of built relationships more than did anything else.
Some of my hardest workouts were still from some of the things that you made us do in XC. Just when you would take us out to Homedale, make us do the bowl or the mile repeats, the standards that you set for us. It was for a guy that didn't have that background. You sure as hell knew what you were doing. It was pretty, now that I think about it in terms of like when I coached and everything, you really did have a good concept of how to train distance runners.
I pretty much talked to absolutely every coach possible. A lot of my ideas came a lot from one of Manchester's greats, Ian Hahn.
Yeah, and he trained me a little bit. He kicked my ass.
Yeah, he helped out. Like after my first year, he came in and started talking to me and telling me like, hey, try this, and it all kind of worked out. And that's what you should be doing as a coach, is trying to learn and try to pick people's ideas. It's just like a teacher. I mean, that's what a coach is. It is a teacher. So you try to pick everybody's minds and trying to find out what's best for your athlete. So when I go to all these clinics, and I keep going to clinics, especially for track, when I keep going to all these clinics, I try to find out as much information as possible, but then you can't just put it to your athletes exactly the way it was taught to you. You have to kind of mold it to the athletes who they are.
Now, quick question with that, because you're going to these clinics, and I guarantee a lot of these clinics are molded towards some of your bigger schools, some of your more powerhouses, what really works with them. And now you're bringing it back to the smaller school. How do you kind of try and make what would work for a Toms River North or a Colts Neck, who are usually talented powerhouses in our area, and bring it back to Manchester where we have some good lead guys, some decent depth, but we definitely don't have, we don't have a bunch of guys sub 18. We have a good pack sub 18, but we don't have a whole group of them like they would. How does that mold? What is your challenge in doing that?
Well, with the smaller school, you got less of a talent pool. But I could say with what we do, we try to modify as much as possible. Now, coaching with Coach Griffin, he is absolutely amazing, and he knows kids. So I'm kind of lucky that I was coaching with him for as long as I have been. But you just gotta look at who you have there, why they're there. Like, I've had so many athletes that just wanted to stay in shape for another sport.
Yep.
And then they end up going to college and doing the thing that you were teaching them.
Yeah.
I have a couple jumpers that are over at Georgian Court, or, wherever they are. And one's at Connecticut, and they were both basketball players. And you would have thought that that's what they wanted to do in college. But after they got a hold of track, they felt really good about it. They saw all the success that they had from it. And it's really nice to see it. But it's because you don't do everything that you're taught from these clinics. You got to try to mold it to the type of athlete that they are. And that's something I always believe. Let the athletes be athletes, and the biggest thing I try to do is, like you said in the beginning, is motivate the hell out of people, and whatever I got to do, to do that, I try to do.
Now, you mentioned Coach Griffin. I know he's already feared me asking him to come on this show. Don't worry, Coach. You're going to come at some point, Coach Griffin. If you listen to this, you're coming on the show at some point. So you can warn him if you talk to him again. But
I think you definitely should get him. I mean, he is superb as a coach.
Oh, absolutely. And, it was a challenge because he came from a larger school and he already had a very good success record as a distance coach. And then he came to us, and he definitely coached against us a few times. I knew Coach Griff before he came over, and he was successful. Now, when he came over, did he pick your brain at all? Like, okay, what can I do to these kids here? Because it's definitely, like you said, a different group, a different pool. Did he know that you were the distance coach there already? And did he kind of come and pick your brain? Like, all right, how much can I kill these kids? Are they going to respond to this? Like, did you guys kind of talk about it, or did he just come in and implement his own thing?
Well, the year that he came in, I was still the cross-country coach, and that was the same year I became the head wrestling coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I did it for one more year, and then, after coaching with him in the spring, because, it was his program in the spring, in the track, I kind of relinquished any part of the distance that, he wanted to take over on that. And I was all for it.
Yeah.
And so I gave up the cross country and I went and started coaching the weight room for 1 year before I went to tennis. The best thing I could say about him is that he had a knowledge of all of track and field, and he kind of his weakest point he kind of put me in charge of, because he wanted to make sure that all that stuff was taken care of. So he appointed me to the jumps. So after I've coached the distance, and I've coached the mid distance and the sprints, and I've also was a thrower in high school, then I'm doing something I've never done before. So it was something brand new for me. And now I did a little bit of it being an assistant coach. And he kind of gave me that responsibility, and I took it full force, and I love doing it.
Yeah, you've always been the type, though, you enjoy the challenge of certain things, especially if it comes to, if you have to sit down and study something and learn something new, you've always been the type of guy that's like, yeah, I'll do that. I get to learn something new. It's engaging. So I have to ask you, we talked about you coming in young, and what would you say is the biggest difference between you as a coach now than young Coach Scheffler? If you could turn around now, go back when you first walked in the door at Manchester, look at your young self and your gigantic neck and say, Chef, don't do this, you idiot. It won't work. Do it this way, because I'm doing it now 19 years later. What would you say?
See, that's a tough question. And that's tough because you do the things that you do because it's the time that's needed to be done. Mm-hmm. So when you're a young guy, I feel like you have to be tougher and more strict because all the young athletes just want to be your friend, and I feel like you have to be a little bit tougher. You want to have that relationship with kids, But at the same time, with high school, in order for you to succeed as much as you need it to be, or find that success, I would say that, you're going to have to try to get a little bit of distance. You don't want them to be your friend, but you want to have that coach and athlete relationship. And I think what I would have done back then more is done more research.
Wow.
I really would have done more and more research than what I was doing. Wrestling wise, as a coach, like I said, each sport was different for me. Wrestling wise, I would have spoke up more as an assistant coach, and not just be the workout partner. I probably should have learned more of what the background of the coaching was. When I stepped into the head wrestling coaching position, it was tough. You never realize how tough a head coach is.
Yeah, when you first stepped in, was it Coach George was the head coach and Coach Pick was still there?
Coach George, when I first came in, Coach George was the head coach. Okay. Coach Pickton was the assistant, and they didn't have a third position. So when I first got hired, I demanded. I was like, "Look, if I'm going to be here, I want to be able to coach wrestling."
Yeah, this is what I just came fresh from doing. Your blood was still boiling, probably from college. Even you were, but you were still gearing to go. You were still in great shape.
I would have volunteered. I would have done whatever. I would have gone to a different. I wouldn't want to go to a different school, but
yeah,
that was my passion, and so I got a position, and then working with Coach George, he is such a respectful. You can't find someone with more integrity than someone like Coach George.
Such a sneaky, funny guy too. He has such a sense of humor that's so different in the way he'll look at you straight face and say something, and it's a joke, but then you can't tell, and then he just walks away, and it's like, wait, what the hell? And then he just walks away, and it's like, George, what did you mean by that? He's like, I was kidding. What are you talking about? Like.
And the professionalism out of him was amazing, because he never steered a kid wrong. And and I learned a lot from him, because, his thing was, and being a young guy, it's tough to do this, but, look, they are student athletes. We're trying to make these young guys men. And that's all we're trying to be teachers first. And, before, when you're a young guy, you're like, I want to win. I want to win. I want to win. There's more to winning than just winning, And I learned a lot from him, just being part of that.
And I feel like that's what, your Coach George's, your John Musoff's, your Dougie Coverts, even your Rob Panicu's, all the great coaches, that's what they preach. We're creating young men that are going to be good at sports, not athletes that are, it was student, young man sport. That's always how it went in terms of the great coaches' minds.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times I've seen kids go through a program or whatever, and they were being used, and they were being used to just win. And look, I like winning, I like winning a lot, but I want to do it the right way. I want kids to be who they're supposed to be. And I want them to become who they're supposed to become. And, I want it where I would want to coach them the way I coach my own son. And right now I am coaching my own son. So it's nice.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Now, true or false? Because
I'm coaching wrestling again. So it's awesome.
Oh, Jesus. I feel bad for him almost with you as his coach, because you're going to sit there and critique everything he does.
No, not at all. Because he's so young,
Yeah.
I just want him, and this is what I want for any kid, is I want them to enjoy it. I want them to love the sport. I want to install the passion that I have for something within my own son. And I want to install that same passion into someone that I'm coaching. Always. I want that same thing. I want people to leave and go, man, I love wrestling, And that's hard to do, because wrestling is one of those sports that it's a love-hate relationship daily.
Chef, I have to say, if I wasn't good at running, wrestling was my other sport. In 6th grade and middle school, I wrestled. I don't know if you knew that about me. I wrestled in middle school and 6th grade before I went to Lakehurst.
I think you mentioned it once. And I knew there would be a fight with, whatever coach I was taking you away from during that season.
Yeah, it would have been Coach Musoff in indoor, so it would have been
Exactly.
an interesting one. Now, I have to ask you, because it always seemed, you talked about the boundary between coach and athlete, especially as a young coach. But there was something, am I right to say that when it comes to the distance group of guys, I feel like we're a different breed? Because especially my freshman year where we had, your seniors were Joe Spazzato, Andrew Giaconis, Angel Macias, Eddie Mize. It was such an easy group to just relax around because there were a lot of just good, like funny, but genuinely good people in that group. And then like even with my group and then a year above me with Craig D'Alessandro, Doug Van Pelt, like we had such a good group of distance runners there where I feel like you did ease up a little bit more around us when it wasn't just a hard workout. When it was time to relax, you weren't scared of relaxing a little more because you knew we weren't going to take advantage of that.
Oh, without a doubt. Like I said, when I started coaching cross country, it's 10 guys at the most. And so you are a different person than I would be with my 30, 40 kids in the wrestling room. But it was also a little bit different because you had great kids, kids that I didn't have to constantly be on watch about, like I lived right behind Van Pelt,
Oh, no one's more motivated than a distance runner.
Yeah,
You have to
exactly.
be. You
And
have to be motivated to go run miles on your own. Like,
absolutely. Like right now during this, epidemic, we're doing remote coaching
mhm.
online through Google Classroom, and I'm putting videos out and I'm putting some workouts in. Same thing with Coach Griff. He's doing the same thing, and some of the other assistant coaches. We're all just trying to get these kids better. But the one thing you could rely on is a distance runner going out every single day
Yep.
and posting their workouts on an application called Strava. So
I've heard of Strava. Yep.
yeah, so they're constantly doing it. And in fact, they don't, if you tell a distance kid to take a day off, you really have to try to work to let them take a day off. Like you have to really try to say, hey, I really need you to take a day off.
That was the hardest thing to learn
Yeah.
was to listen to your body because it's like, no, I need miles. I need to hit my miles this week. I need to hit them. And it was like, no, you don't. Relax. We don't
Yeah.
want you to get hurt. And I know a lot about being hurt.
And that's another thing that Coach Griff is very good about, and that I've learned from him, is that less is more sometimes. You got to
Mhm.
listen to your body, and each kid that comes through, if they tell you that they're hurting, you gotta honestly believe them, and you got to modify whatever you're doing to work around them.
Yeah, and and you touched on that and you talked about listening and believing. You have always been big on the psyche of an athlete. And like I said, when I was running XC and doing distance, you were still really a student of distance as well, learning as much as you can to be a great coach. And I think you succeeded because even after me, before me was Cones, and then Spazzato was a great 800-meter runner. You had Pass after me, and so many good, Matt Brown, just so many
Yeah.
good distance runners that you directly affected and you directly coached. So I think you did a great job handing off a fantastic program to Griff. Um, what what is your concept of how much the psyche plays in the two sports that you focused on really between track and wrestling? I feel like it plays a major role. The mindset going into both. What have you found? Are there any similarities between the mindset training of distance runners and wrestlers?
Oh, without a doubt. As you asked me earlier, what would I do different when I was younger? When I talked about research, I should have also put in there, I would have definitely talked and done more. Even though I talked about it a little bit, I would have done more with the, training of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Look, when you talk to any Olympic athlete, they tell you to visualize. And if you watch them before they come down a runway, before they go and jump, before they actually come out of the starting blocks, they're visualizing their entire race. I don't know how many times.
Yep.
When I was an athlete and I was competing, I would visualize what was going to happen in my match at least 1,000,000 times before it happened, in every possible scenario.
Mm-hmm.
The mind is more powerful than the body. It will always be. You could do so much more than you think you can, and I've always told athletes this. You just got to really, one, trust yourself, trust what you've learned, trust your practice, don't put a lot of pressure on yourself. I think too many young athletes put so much pressure on absolutely everything that they do, and there shouldn't be. You should train with some pressure, but my motto is everything is important, but nothing is special.
I like that.
Yeah, everything is important. When you talk about it, look, everything that you do is important, but it's not the end of anything on one jump. It's not the end of anything on one match, So nothing's special, but everything is important.
And you were always big, especially with me as well. I think you did a really good job with a young freshman me who was having a lot of success at the time, keeping me pretty grounded. And I found that
sometimes you were tough.
Yeah. I was very hyped up. I went from just breaking 5 in indoor to now running 4:30 in outdoor, and that was a huge leap. And I have no idea where that came from, but it happened. And low 10s in the 2 mile was pretty bizarre, to be quite honest, when I think back at it.
Well, I always told you your best event was the 2 mile. You you wanted the 8 so bad.
I mean, and listen, I found success in the 8. Okay.
Yes, yes, you did. But if you really trained for the 2, I think you had that speed and that endurance, and you had everything for it. It would have been.
See, I had it, but my body wasn't with it because I broke. I could never recover. And honestly, Chef, I feel like this really goes a long way because I think you saw it probably towards the end of my senior year, and it happened all throughout college. I mentally checked out of being competitive.
It's hard, and that's what I'm trying not to do with my son. So I make everything fun right now.
Yeah.
And not fun or in a way where it's like games, just like enjoying the sport.
Now, talk to some of the high school athletes that are probably going to be listening, because I'm going to put out the Chef is on there, and you're going to have your fan club listen to it, young and old. The people that have you.
I don't know if I have a fan club, but
you either a fan club, a hate club, a club is a club. It doesn't matter, Chef. But overall, the challenge of if you're a gifted high school athlete and you're looking to go collegiate, maybe big time collegiate, you went to a big time collegiate program. You were at West Virginia when right near or at its peak of a program when West Virginia was pretty much a powerhouse college in wrestling.
Nate Carr was there at the time
as
an assistant, and he was, a bronze medalist in the 80 Olympics. He was very good. He was very good at teaching. Turnbull was an All-American from Clarion.
And it was still a destination university in terms of a program. It's still, it wasn't Iowa, Minnesota at that point. No, it was still a destination.
You're ranked top 30 in the country at the time, for the most part. It wasn't a go-to wrestling school, but look, they had great wrestlers: Dean Morrison, Sean Haig, Scott Haig, Cars, all the Cars.
Yeah.
So, Moxon, and right now they have, what's his name? I can't even think of his name right now. Noah Adams. Yeah. So Noah Adams, he just, he Big 12 wrestler of the year. He's really good. But West Virginia was too big of a school for me, but I went there for other reasons.
Yeah.
I should have done things differently for me as an athlete. I should have listened to my high school coach, where I got a lot of my information. The reason why I wanted to be a teacher, the reason why I wanted to be a coach was because of Matt Ciempa, my high school wrestling coach. I fell in love with everything that he's done, and I should have listened to him more. And, but you do things for your own reasons at the time. And I went there, enjoyed it, did everything I could. I loved wrestling, learned. But more importantly, I took from it what I took from it, and I came out and still had that passion for whatever I was doing. I love what I do. I mean, you don't coach 3 sports every year for 19, 20 years and and not enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
it's definitely not for the money at Manchester or any of these small high schools. I'll tell you that much.
not you, you get the money for any kind of, you take any compensation just to feel some kind of worth, but for the
Yeah.
most part, I enjoy coaching. I mean, I got into the gig of teaching for coaching, but I've realized that they're both in the same, and I really enjoy being at Manchester. I think we have some great athletes, and I really like the people I work with. I mean, that phys ed office is always fun.
I've had
You
some fun sitting in there substituting. That was some of the best time substituting was sitting in there at the end of the day, just listening to all the coach, like seeing a different side of all the people I looked up to my whole life. It was pretty fun. Now, talking to some of the younger athletes, like I said, that are potentially going into college, I went through this at a smaller school at Marist, but it becomes a lot of a job when you're an athlete in college.
Oh, without
You
a
are
doubt.
so dedicated, and that can lead to very much of a burnout scenario. What were the challenges, and what are the things, some advice that you would give to any young athlete right now that is, definitely going to go to college, potentially a big D1 program? What would your advice be to them in terms of how to balance that, how to not burn out, how to take this job in stride with being a student as well?
Well, first off, any athlete that's planning on to pursue athletics in college, you can't go in there and think that it's like high school. It's not.
Everyone there is a conference, county, state champion. Everyone.
If
Everyone.
not, my my biggest challenge was trying to get in the lineup, and it was because of Sean Haig, and in high school he was number one in the world.
Yeah.
2 years in a row. But I would say treat it the way I treat coaching. Treat it with some passion. Go in there knowing what to expect. My high school coach gave me some advice before I went, and he said, he was telling me, he was like, this summer, you got to work harder than you ever have going in. You have to do more than you ever have before you're even there. And I had to do that. I had to work out constantly and sacrifice as much as possible, and at times that was hard, when all your friends are going and having a good time and enjoying what they're doing, and you're sacrificing as much as possible. I could have sacrificed more in college, I could say. I didn't do everything I had to. But, I would say to the young athletes, go in there, give it everything you have, because you're only there for 4 or 5 years. That's all you have, and it's tough. It is not easy. But usually any kid that's going to a D1 program already knows that. If they're going into a big-time D1 program, they know that, or D2.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And I'm going to tell you right now, after watching some of these D3 programs and everything else, I would say they're going through the same thing too.
Yeah, some of your big D3s, as long as they're not, a lot of the individual D3s can definitely compete with some of the D1s.
Oh, without
the team
a doubt.
D3s are different in terms of just size. I think is the major difference, the size of the athletes that they get, where the D1 are getting grown men and the
Depending
D3
on the
are
sport,
still developing. Yeah, definitely. Now,
some of those D3 programs, because the athlete couldn't get into the school academically, so some of those D3 programs are stealing some of these kids, and it's nice for them.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing I have to say, and this is going to be interesting, but my senior year, I definitely wish that I had the chance to talk to you a little more, but I didn't, because I was definitely scared of you. I was scared of you, and I was scared because I knew, you don't have to lie, after all these years, you were probably pissed at me.
No, I was
left to go do football, and I know I talked to you junior year about it. I was straight up with you that I'm not coming back for XC. But I know for a fact, because I know Mike Smith and Chris Potts told me years later, like, you cost us a B-South championship. They flat out said to me, like, you cost us one, because if you were there, we could have won it.
Yeah, but, you got to remember, I mean, anything could happen no matter what. So you can't just blame one athlete for, you can't put it on the shoulders of one athlete or blame one athlete.
And one thing, my major decision was I was constantly getting hurt running, and I wanted to play football one more time. So I didn't know if I was going to make it another XC season, because junior year we had a great team, and I couldn't make it the full year. And that sucked.
and like I said earlier, you have to do with what you're passionate about,
Yep.
and whether, it's not where you find the most success, it's what you're passionate about. And you went with that. Although, and this is why I was a little upset, because I know the potential that you have, or you had, or, I don't know if you're still competing, running around and whatnot.
Oh, a torn meniscus has kept me on the shelf for over a year now, so no.
But I knew the potential that was there for you to find the success that I knew that you could have gotten. And that's what upset me more than anything else. And but you got to make the decision for you, and that's what and when you're younger, you kind of forget those things, and I'm talking about me as a coach. When I was a young coach, like I said earlier, I wish I did more because it was tough, not just to think about winning or try to do what's only right for what you think is right for the athlete. You gotta listen and trust the kids,
So yeah, I definitely avoided you senior year when but overall, but yeah, no, it was an interesting time, and I don't regret it, because I did have a fun year playing football that year.
Yeah, and you got to
started. I did everything. I did what I needed to do as a safety. I was definitely one of the better safeties in the division, so I was okay with that.
And you got to remember, I was a football player, so I get it.
I know. You understood it, but at the same time, you're also looking at the roster and looking at me and going, he can run sub 16, this idiot. Like, I guarantee that's what you were thinking. Like, this idiot can compete at Homedale, and look at him.
Yeah, but at the same time, look, you got to let kids be kids, know. So
definitely.
And you got to trust their decision for what they're doing for themselves. Because I don't know if you remember, my motto always was, the best coach you're ever going to have is yourself.
Mm-hmm. You did always say that, and
I still do.
Yeah, and it's
I learned
true.
that from my old coach, Matt Ciampa. So.
There you go. All right, so another challenge that you have to deal with, especially high school, and I think it's gotten much harder even since I was there. And I was there at the start of social media, the birth of it, with MySpace and stuff. And it was always a challenge then as a coach, and even when I went back, to kind of get athletes to put blinders on when they're competing, when they're practicing, focus on the sport, and keep the outside as the outside. With social media getting as huge as it is, smartphones being mini computers, what has your challenge been now to kind of keep the athlete as the athlete when they're there? And, is it much more of a balancing act where they can't help but bring in the outside? Like, what has it been with you now in this development with all this going on?
I think there's some definitely pluses to the technology that's there now. But when I was coaching wrestling the last couple of years, it was hard, because a lot of these athletes were looking up their opponents, and they were finding absolutely everything that they possibly could on them, and they would get themselves all in a nervous, becoming a nervous wreck. And I was like, you guys got to let that go. You got to start trusting who you are. You got to do what you do and stop worrying about what everybody else does. And and it was tough dealing with that social media. As a coach, though, it helped me make up matchups so much better with all that stuff that was out there, like the shortconference.com and stuff like that. All that stuff that was out there for me was absolutely amazing, because I remember when I first started coaching, and I remember when I was in high school, same thing. We were cutting out, newspapers, and putting the matchups together that way, which took up time.
And you only really knew like the big names, and you knew how good they were doing, and then you kind of had to research the rest of the lineups really hard.
Exactly. So it's a lot different now. Coaching wise, I think it's great. I mean, look at football, how much they're saving time with huddle.
Huddle's
Same thing with
unbelievable.
basketball. I mean,
Yeah.
Coach Boschman's always on huddle, and he's looking up and starting to scout as many teams as possibly can using huddle, and that helps him out with the success that he's had over the past couple of years.
Could you imagine nowadays being a coach, like these young coaches that are coming in, remembering the time with the older coaches where they had to go and meet up with another coach to trade tape? Like,
Oh,
remember, like I was at the inception of that where, you would send the younger coach to go and meet up with the other younger coach and they would trade tape. And that's, was the honor system. You each give a few games and that was that. And you studied. Like, I don't think that's a concept anymore.
And as time changed too, like it's hard to find a coach that would even want to do that anymore,
Yeah,
because the fact that, your entire weekend, is gone. If you have a family, it's gone. It's I can't imagine doing that kind of stuff anymore. That's tough. It's hard enough with coaching. I mean, there's other things that kind of make it more difficult than that weren't there back when I first started coaching. But going back to the technology, like right now with this epidemic, like I said earlier, I'm coaching through Google Classroom. Back then you didn't have anything. Social media, using Remind to sit there and make announcements to kids instead of, I remember when I was calling people left and right.
Yep.
That was
and
hard.
Their parents would probably pick up and, hello, Mrs. So-and-so, this is Coach Scheffler.
Yeah.
Is someone available? Like,
the communication is so much better through those aspects. Like when we were coaching wrestling and there was a snow day or something like that, trying to get into the building as soon as the building was cleared to get in, trying to make calls, and then you're missing like 16 kids, out of 32, so, having that Remind or whatever social media that they use to sit there and communicate with is awesome. I love it. But, I can't say with track though, I have any issues with cell phones out on the track. I mean, during the warm up here and there, otherwise they're not on their cell phone. They're not sitting there constantly texting. They're there to practice, and they know it, and then they're working hard doing that stuff. The good thing is I bring out my phone or tablet or something, and I'm videotaping constantly. Now that I'm coaching the jumps, I can stop and do it in slow-mo and everything else. It's absolutely amazing to help kids understand where their body's supposed to be, because I'm not pole vaulting.
I would love to see that. I would love to see the attempt. Can we please get this happening?
I don't think there's a pole big enough for me.
Oh, man. Now, I think the difference with Manchester Track, and I think it always has been, is when you join the track team, you're aware that it's one of the major programs that has an extremely proud tradition at Manchester, where we have Andrew Valman, who is still sitting there in the world record book, a part of a 4x4 team. We have Andrew Dunbar, Ian Hahn, now Jada's there. Even going back to Kurt and Eric Delaney and all these, there's so many great athletes that have come through there that I think they understand that when they step on the track, there's a proud tradition there that you don't want to screw up. You don't want to be that kid that screws it up or pisses everybody off. So I feel like that is still there. At least it was there when I was back coaching, that the kids were still aware of the tradition of the track program.
There was greats all the way throughout, and it's not just the stars that are on the track. It's the kids who are, the workmates, like they sit there and they're the ones that are working constantly to get those second places or third places.
They eat up points and they win dual meets for you. Those kids win the dual meets.
Yeah. Usually, over the past 10 years, we're always missing like one or two kids that would make it a tremendous year. You're missing, a Jordan Torney, or an Ian Hahn or something like that. I mean, it's always one superstar you're missing. to make it that special year. I mean, the one year the last time we won B South, what was it, 4 years ago, 5 years ago? We weren't even expected to even come close to it. And, we just had a great recruiting season, and we got some kids to come out that never came out before they're, and then they're seniors. And I'm getting them off the basketball court saying, hey, what else do you have to do?
Yeah.
Then next thing you know, Mason Jones, takes fifth in the meet of champs, in the triple jump.
I always told Nathan he was going. He did football that year, then basketball, and then track. And I said, Mace, you're going to college for your third best sport. And I know you love basketball, but man, what he could do on a football field and what he could do triple jumping, it was just out of this world. And I love Mason. He was such a talented kid and a good kid too.
Yeah, he. You know what? I was just talking about him the other day to one of the other coaches, and I was like, I said there hasn't been a kid like that who was just pure competitiveness,
just raw talent too, just so much raw talent.
He had so much behind the tank, and but the thing that drove him was his competitiveness, and it's hard to find that because he was just competitive when that whistle blew, or when they called his name to run down that runway. That gun shot off. He was just competitive. It was nice to see him in all three sports.
And it was interesting because he was such a goofball too. His personality was just so relaxed and goofy, wanting to joke around. But like you said, once it clicked on, there was no shutting it off. He was just all systems go.
And kids like Jordan Torney were the quiet ones that were just that competitive.
Yep.
Jordan Torney is competitive. I really didn't realize how truly competitive he was.
I had a few conversations with Jordan while he was there because I was lucky enough to be there when he was a freshman, sophomore helping coach. And he would just look at me and go, I want to win the nationals in the hurdles. Yeah. And I'm like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, I want to win nationals. I'm like, go for it. Like,
he was unreal. And then, there's other kids that it's hard to mention all those.
Well, you look at Shavar now, what he's doing over at Seton Hall, yeah. Shavar Reynolds.
And then in wrestling, I had some of the greatest kids with wrestling in that 2010 season we had. Oh, my goodness. It's just great kids. And also how competitive they were. Like you had Jimmy Lawson, obviously.
Yep.
You had Ken Theobald, Matt Theobald. Ken Theobald was the hardest working kid I've ever coached in wrestling ever, and
I don't know that he overtakes Johnny Moroz, because Johnny Moroz year was right up there as workman. Johnny Moroz was such a hard-working dude.
he truly was too. Yes, it's hard to put, it's hard to say all those, and not mention every kid that I've ever coached, because I could say any kid that stuck with the sports that I've coached or whatever, they were just great kids. And that's the thing. It's like sometimes you get frustrated with some of the seasons and maybe some of the kids, but truly where I've been, when you look back on it, you just sit there and you're like, wow, those kids were amazing kids, and the things that they've done is absolutely amazing. And it's nice to see them grow up. Like right now, seeing Jimmy doing what Jimmy's doing, and going out and seeing him fight. And then if you just sit down and talk to him, the conversations you can have with that young man is absolutely amazing.
The Lawsons are just such a great family. They're one of the better families of Manchester, period. That's just a fantastic family from their parents, just down. Like Lee Lawson was in my class. And Lee has just, been one of my friends. We haven't been as in touch, but when we were younger, we were very good friends. Like just the whole Lawson family, top to bottom, is just a fantastic group of people.
It's hard not to mention all the families that are so great there. You got the Mouse, the Musoffs, you got the
Meanies with Billy and everything now there.
Yeah, it's hard not to, say all these names all the time and just think about all the amazing things that's come out of Manchester.
Yep.
But when I talk about the Theobalds and Ken and Matt, Ken, you teach him one thing, the next day he's out. Like I told him a story about Tom Brands and his brother going out and running to, to practice every day or to school every day. Next thing you know, you look outside, that's what they're doing, you know?
And then you made them watch Vision Quest 3 times, and they did that whole movie all over.
it, you know, they were just amazing kids. That entire 2010 wrestling team was absolutely amazing. To do what we did was amazing, considering that we are a Group 2 school and winning the districts for the first time in school history and beating Southern. And by the way, in the past, I guess, 17 years, we're still the only – that 2010 team, they were still the only team that beat Southern in the districts in that amount of time, in 17 or 19 years.
Which, if anyone knows anything about Southern, they have the coolest wrestling setup. Coach, do they still have that wrestling setup where it's just under the main light and nothing else is illuminated? Because that was the coolest setup in the history of wrestling for me.
No, I don't think that's Southern.
Who
that's
was that? That was Burrow. Burrow did it. Yeah, that's just the coolest setup in wrestling. I love that setup.
we had something similar to it towards the end, where we had the 4 lights in the middle when the lighting system got changed in the gym. But a lot of teams have that. But Point Burrow was always that school that always had that, and that small gym and all that spotlight right on the kid.
It was quite literally a wrestling room, and they used it for all their tournaments, like all their matches. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump talking some collegiate sports now, because you're a college sports guy. And we're going to kind of stick to wrestling, but I have to ask you, how sad are you right now to not be able to watch March Madness and Matt Madness? Because I've said for my money, I watch Matt Madness before March Madness, like as they're on simultaneously. But the wrestling championships is done a lot quicker than the basketball one. So I focus on wrestling first, and then I watch basketball, because I think wrestling actually is better in my eyes. How sad are you to not watch both?
I could actually cry not watching the wrestling tournament.
It's always so good. There's always a surprise,
and they're trying so hard because they're putting last year's and I guess all the way from 2013 on, or even more than that, trying to get people just to watch it. And it's hard because, you know, I've seen them already. I know what's happening.
Yeah.
Not watching this year, you know, this is the first time since World War II. So, I just, you know, after the NCAA ruled that winter sports are not included on getting an extra year of eligibility,
which is absolutely ridiculous.
I was heartbroken. And then Tom Ryan is working really hard. He's the Ohio State coach. Is trying really hard to do it the way he feels, is wherever their last ranking was, you know, would, you know, to become an All-American. So they would just be named All-Americans based on their last ranking. And, you know, it's so hard I couldn't imagine some of these guys where it was their last year and, you know, and going through and not being able to wrestle in an NCAA tournament, you know, it'd be very difficult being them.
Being in the Big Ten and not being able to wrestle your Big Ten tournament and then not being able to go NCAAs is awful.
Yeah, it's tough. I can't imagine what they're going through, and then having some kind of hope and thinking that maybe you would get an extra year of eligibility, and then that got, you know, the spring sports gets an extra year and not the winter sports, and I feel absolutely saddened for them. You know, and I can't imagine what they're going through. As a spectator, you know, that was always my day where I got to sit down and watch. And, you know, I don't watch that many sports on TV except for wrestling, you know, and which is amazing, someone being involved in sports and I'm not sitting down watching sports.
Do you have a paid Flow Wrestling account? I assume you would.
I did. You know, when extra expenses go out, but you find other ways to look at it, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So, but you know, it's hard. So, I can't imagine what those guys are good. I feel more for them than me as a spectator, obviously, you know?
I couldn't imagine being a coach in this situation either. And how do you tell your seniors? You worked 4 years, and even your redshirt seniors that are now in their 5th year, you busted your asses. You're grown men now. You came here as boys. You're men. I promised you this opportunity, and it's out of my control, and I can't give it to you.
I know.
And I can't give it to you.
Yeah, because in college, when you're at those levels, you have a different relationship with those kids, and
Oh yeah.
like especially like Cale Sanderson, who he sits there and he has guys sometimes living in his basement.
Cale's a different breed.
Well, I feel like all those coaches are different breeds, but it was nice when Jimmy was getting recruited to be able to talk to some of those guys.
Yes.
Some of my heroes. And I couldn't imagine. I really couldn't. And then I also feel bad for Frank Molinaro, who just retired after having the Olympics being postponed.
And
it's
he really wanted it. He's been working so hard. He's had a pretty good run lately in terms of matches, in terms of getting some wins, really leading up to the Olympics right now. It's been tough.
It has been. And to sit there and being so close, and then everything being postponed, and then a couple days later you sit there and you announce your retirement. That's got to be tough on him. I wish him the best, and it's hard not to watch Frank the Tank, So
yeah, and that's a guy that you remember from coaching against him.
Yeah,
and that he was and he's always been such a classy individual too. Even in victory, he was never. I mentioned Johnny Moroz. I think Johnny had to wrestle Frank once. And I think Frank they knew each other kind of from, wrestling. Everyone wrestled clubs, so you all knew each other.
Yeah, if you're good in wrestling, you're wrestling clubs. Without
and
doubt.
I think he just looked at Johnny and he was just like, what do you want to do? And Johnny's like, I'm going to try. And look, in typical Johnny fashion, he took his first shot, and then Frank just did Frank. And like,
and that was the best thing about Moroz. Like he did whatever he needed to for the team. Always.
Oh, yeah.
He worked his butt off to save points sometimes, like against a kid like that. You know what I mean? And he did everything he could.
Yeah. So, speaking of, college in general, we'll talk about West Virginia in a second, but in Jersey, we've been focusing on Rutgers, and what Rutgers is doing right now is they had 2 national champions. They were in line to possibly get a repeat and another. Like, that program came 10 years forward in 2 years. It's insane what they've done. What are your feelings just being in Jersey, knowing about Rutgers and seeing what's happening there?
Well, I love Jersey more than anything. I'd never want to leave Jersey. And it's nice to see that all the teams in New Jersey are doing well right now. Look at Princeton. They Rutgers for the first time in such a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you look at pound for pound, the high school wrestlers this year, the top 5, there's 4 out of those 5 are going to New Jersey schools.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be Rider, Princeton, or Rutgers. And if you go down the line, the top 25, the highest percentage are going to New Jersey schools. And it's nice to see, considering that Jersey is on fire right now with wrestling in college. Last year having 4 national champions, so I like what I see, and I like what I see with Rutgers, but I knew that was going to happen as soon as Goodell got the coaching job. I remember, him at Jackson and the kind of personality he has, that whole Jackson group, well, you take a look at Panic U and everything, you look at all those guys that grew up together and everything else. They all have that same personality where it's like you want to do whatever you have to not to disappoint them. And it's nice to see, And
it seems like anyone in the wrestling community knew once he got there, because Kevin Mallist, Manchester alum, we mentioned the Mallist family, is very close to the Rutgers program. Even though he's a football player, is a wrestler at heart as well, and was very close to the program. He was I think anyone that was close to wrestling in Jersey knew once Goodell got there, it was going to be a different breed.
Yes. And it's not taking away that anything that Sachi was doing,
no.
but Goodell, he's this young coach that just, has this personality for years in the high school, field, and then goes there and, had that same personality that I'm going to run everything. And also when he went there, the football program was, on fire. So, they kind of started together.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was nice to see. And you knew he was going to do things the right way too. After talking to him about Ken Theobald, when Ken Theobald went there, it was, you saw, and after we took a visit there with Jimmy, his personality, he has that recruiting personality, and that's key, is recruiting, in college, trying to get those recruits, and he's doing a great job doing it. And then he brings in Donnie Pritzloff as an assistant coach. Of course they're going to do well. Everybody wants to be around Donnie.
Yeah.
It's nice to see.
And it's nice to see that it seems like the program has completely turned the corner.
I'm sorry, it's Don.
Yeah. That they completely turned the corner, because I remember when I was in high school, when Rutgers got Scott Winston, who was arguably one of the best high school wrestlers of all time. It was like, oh, Rutgers is going to be something. And Scott had a good career, but not the career everyone thought he was going to have. So Rutgers, they weren't at the peak that we thought they were going to get to. And now it's nice to see that they might have actually turned that corner to becoming one of the more recognizable national programs, which is nice.
Oh, without a doubt. Look, it takes time to turn around programs. It takes a lot of time. And he when he first brought Winston there, is just in the beginning of everything. So part of the thing I tell my high school wrestlers and when they were going off to college is the key is to have is your workout partner.
Mm-hmm.
So when freshmen come in, I always say, look, don't try to go with the kid that you're going to beat. Go with the kid that's going to beat you.
Yep.
And you want someone that's going to work harder than you, because you want to up your level always. And it's going to be that competitiveness that's going to make you great. And that's the great thing about the Rutgers program right now, is that wrestling room is just competitive, and they're doing some great things there. And to be one of the top 5 in the country of selling out, ticket sales and everything else, and getting people involved in it is amazing. Look, Jersey's wrestling. It's one of the top in the country for wrestling. So it's nice to see that we have something in state. We have a couple in state now that are just top notch.
Yeah, it's really good. It's about time. I want to ask you about the West Virginia program. You touched on one of the guys that they have there now. What are your feelings? You obviously probably still pay attention to them, being an alumni of the program. What are your feelings on what the West Virginia program is doing right now?
I think Tim Flynn's doing a great job. He was over at Edinburgh working with one of the guys that I always looked up to more than anybody else, Bruce Baumgartner. He was his assistant for Bruce Baumgartner for years. And then when Bruce became I think he became the athletic director, Tim became the head coach there and had a great record. I think it was like 246 and 95 or something.
Wow.
Had a great job, doing a great job in the EWL at the time. And then came to West Virginia after the Bull left, and Sammy Henson. And, I think Sammy Henson was there for like 4 years. But Tim came in and has done an amazing job, looking over some of these kids. Seeing the progression of Noah Adams is absolutely amazing. So I like watching him. I mean, he was one of the finals for the Hodge Trophy. So, I think he's doing a great job. I can't wait to see what happens in the next couple of years. And, I think he's also one of those coaches that is just from his personality, he's trying to get that relationship with those kids more than anything else. And I think that's important.
Now, you pay attention to the high school and collegiate wrestling scene, so a lot of the, athletes that are on that scene. Right now, I think the only major wrestler that most people can pull out is Jordan Burroughs, because he's been the face of American wrestling now for a better part of a decade.
And it was nice to watch him wrestle in high school, too.
Yeah, he's just been a freak since the moment he touched a mat.
Yeah.
Who should anyone that wants to go research this? We all have spare time now, so people can go research some wrestling. Who should they be looking at? Who should they be going on YouTube and watching some matches of that are potential Olympians that we might be looking at and rooting for in the red, white, and blue now in about a year from now, a year and change?
See, that's hard because they're different styles of wrestling.
Yep.
And
Well, any guys on your radar that you're kind of watching right now, thinking like this guy, I might be seeing him in the red, white, and blue.
I'm going to tell you, if I'm looking at a high school kid that I think that has a lot of potential, I think it's that kid from Colonia, Chan Pazanski. He's going to Rutgers. He's one of the guys going to Rutgers. He was an 82-pounder state champ. I think he has a lot of potential, a lot of room for growth. I don't know if he's going out to Fargo. Well, not that anybody's going out to Fargo right now.
Yeah.
Become an All-American, but I like the way he wrestles, and another one in college right now is obviously Suriano.
Yes.
And I would love to see him do well.
Absolutely, Chef. One of these days, we have to take a trip out to Fargo because even though I wasn't a wrestler, I've always wanted to go to Wrestling Nationals. So we have to take a trip out to Fargo one year. I feel like that would be a fun trip.
I'd rather take you to. I don't know if you go down to New Jersey States here.
AC.
Yeah, going down to AC is a great time, and watching some of the top wrestlers in the state battle it out at the War of the Shore, is a great thing, and I love being there. I love watching that, especially in the semifinals. You watch the quarters and the semis; it's really nice. What's really important now too is the fact that they started a women's tournament. I think that is absolutely amazing. In fact, if I can get my wife to jump on board, I want to get my daughter into it. She really wants to. She sees my son John doing it and me coaching it, and she's like, I want to be a wrestler. My wife is a little unsure right now until there's separate female teams in the high school. I think the way California does, I think California has separate female teams. It'd be nice to see in the high school that, with not just the tournaments, but team-wise in the high school. But it's expanding and it's growing, and it's really nice to see. In fact, women's wrestling is becoming so great. There's actually, I think in North Carolina, there was a girl that just won the states, not just women's states, the states. So it was nice to see.
So that's awesome. And I don't tell my wife either, because if that comes to New York, Josephine is going to be doing wrestling. She'll definitely do some like biddy wrestling, some stuff like that, at least to see if she'll enjoy it.
I would love my daughter to do it, because, they really want me both. The only reason I'm still coaching wrestling with my son is he wanted me to. I won't do it if he doesn't want me to, and they're pushing, he's like, I won't do it unless you're doing it, Dad. And it's nice because it's a great bonding thing between me and my son.
So there you go, Chef. You found your next mission. You're going to start youth wrestling for women in Manchester. There you go. Young girls in Manchester.
We have some girls that are at the high school level that have competed, and it's nice to see that there's like 4 or 5 girls, but I know that there's more out there.
Well, I'm saying you should start a separate one for younger girls at the elementary level where boys, if you're a wrestler, you start when you're like 4 or 5. If it's already in the family, you're on the mat quickly.
I'm going to say, though, coaching the young kids is a lot different than coaching the high school kids.
I could only imagine. That's the one thing I haven't done is coaching young wrestlers. I could only imagine.
It's harder. It's a lot harder, but it's more rewarding. So,
all right, Chef. We could go on forever, but unfortunately, this podcast has to end. Thank you so much for coming on, my man.
No, I appreciate it.
Once again, he's Tom Scheffler, better known as Chef. He is a teacher and coach over at my alma mater, Manchester Township High School, for 19 years now. Makes me feel old, probably makes him feel old as well. Chef, you're probably not a big social media guy. I'm going to give you a chance. Do you have anything social media-wise that you would like to give out there?
Look, I post a lot of things for my high school athletes out there on Thomas Scheffler at MTHS Wrestling
Okay,
on Twitter.
that's on Twitter at MTHS Wrestling. Okay.
Yep.
So definitely go check that out. You'll get to see what Manchester Wrestling is doing there, which is always fun and is another proud program with a lot of great names that have come through it.
Unfortunately, I'm not coaching wrestling anymore there. So, but I just post things.
You just post things. You're the social media arm now. Is Coach
No, no,
Meany still the head coach there?
no, Coach. There's a new guy. I don't know his name yet. But Coach Vince Aguirre is still assistant coach there, and yeah, Vincey's still doing it. And then I post all my athletes on there, track especially.
Awesome. So go check that out. Again, I'm your host of Sports Opinions Podcast, Alex Cuesta. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at @Cuesta30. Find Sports Opinions on Twitter at SportsOpinion30, Instagram Sports Opinions 30. Find us on Facebook. And you can watch us on YouTube, listen to us anywhere you can find the podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, anywhere you can find one. And if you want to send us an email, you want to be on the show, you want to tell me I suck, you want to tell me I'm awesome, I don't care. Email us sportsopinions30 at gmail.com. Once again, everybody, Sports Opinions Podcast. I hope everyone is staying safe. I hope everyone is trying to not be super bored in their quarantine. Give this a listen. Kill about an hour. Everyone, have a good one.